Happy birthday, Nita!
We love you. We miss you.
And now, the highly anticipated Neet Perspective podcast, recorded July 2023 during what she called the East Coast tour, is now live. Let's go!
Hi, and welcome to Neet Perspective podcast. We are so glad that you take a moment of your day to join us here on our platform, where we're speaking about the different choices we make and how they propel us or derail us. I'm Venita Synder, and I am your host. Also go by Neet. Neet's perspective is my perspective on the things that you're experiencing, the things I've experienced, and the journey along healing that I have and I offer to you. That I've made some choices that were good, some not so good, and how do we pivot from them? How do I adjust the default from them? How did I heal through them? And hopefully they will inspire you, encourage you in your transformation process. And there may be also some other content that you'll get to learn a little bit more about me and what we're striving to do in this platform.
So, Venita Synder. Who is Venita Synder? And more importantly, why now? Why this time?
Who is Venita Synder? I love to meet her one day. Actually, I just got to know her a little while ago. I am Venita Synder, fun fact. And when I say I like to get to know her, is she's been hidden. She's been under a rock. She's been in the shadows. She's been in the wind for various reasons prior to her healing journey. So you hear me speak about her healing journey. It's me and my healing journey. And during that process, I wasn't sure of who I was because of the things I was going through, some of my own choices and some of the choices or consequences of choices of others. I am a person who is passionate about people. I am a person who is considerate of the pains you experience and the silence that we suffer in sometimes. As a experience in that field, I can speak on that, where it has been quiet times in my life, but it wasn't really quiet in a good way. And so I have decided that now is the time to speak up because I have come through my healing journey. It's time to reach out to someone else that may be in silence, in an isolated state of life, and help them through their journey and their process. Help them adjust their defaults, their mindset of thinking of what they think of themselves, that they may no longer be valuable or worthy because of an experience, in their past. We all have a past because the past was just yesterday, right? And so that's the way I like to frame it. And reframing our thinking is so important because if we just stay focused on what we thought or what we experienced, it will keep us hindered. It will keep us bound. It's like a stronghold on our lives. I sometimes refer to it as just the sinking hole. It's the pit that we fall into, and sometimes we become comfortable in that pit, right? Because we don't find a way out and we don't have someone that can help us out. And that's one of my goals, is to help others be inspired and encouraged to know that wherever you are, you can pivot and make a change. And that's why now is the time, because we want people to live their best life for real, in real life.
Intentionality. You use that word, intentionality, tied to purpose. I think that has something to do with why now, but I'll give it to you.
Intentionality?
Yes.
Are you asking me? What's the question in that? Yes, I do. Yes, that's one of my favorite words. It's been my word for a couple of years now, intentionality. So I'll just kind of go on that as far as the utilization of it, how it ties to my purpose or where I am.
Yes. Can you give us an example of how intentionality has played a role in you getting to this moment, the first podcast, and it might be tied to this other word I hear about, obedience. I don't know, but I'll let you take it from here.
Well, intentionality comes along with my choice. As we speak about this podcast being about the choices that we make in life and how they propel us or derail us. And I got to a point in my life a couple of years ago, I think about 7, I would say, where I made a decision and took massive action on that decision to be intentional about where I wanted to go in life. I have been a academic scholar, an athlete, a mom, a wife. I've done a lot of great things. Managers, people all over the world I've gotten to have interactions with and engagement with in person. And through that, I learned some things that were attractive to me, some of the passions that I have in discovery. And then it's like, but I was holding back. And when I realized I was holding back, I was not walking in my purpose. And so if I was going to do one, I had to do the other, which is be intentional about that approach. I had to set some goals out and say, how can I accomplish that? If I'm under this rock right now and that's keeping me from reaching that, I have to get out from under it, which means I had to face my fears. I had to face my truths. I had to expose those things that I've decided to put in a box and hide away from myself. And I had to be intentional about it. I had to be truthful to myself. On the outside, considered myself to have kept my frame together. You know, I was a nice picture in a frame. So from the outside, all looks well. But internally, I was broken. Spiritually, my soul was also broken. So I had soul issues, I had spirit issues, which ultimately led to people issues. So I had to be intentional about wanting to heal and make some changes in my life so that I could be the best version of me to help someone else also experience that journey.
And it sounds like when you touched on making these choices, the powers of choice. And early on, you said something about propelling or derailing. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely, absolutely. We make choices every day, all throughout the day. Sometimes some choices are bigger than others, but every choice that we make has value, has purpose, and has impact in our lives. Some choices we make initially, they give us a direction of success or we accomplish a good thing. But then there's some other choices that we make that derail us because they don't align with our purpose, don't align with the goals in our life and what we are desiring to seek to achieve, what we want to accomplish. And so when we make those choices that derail us, how do we pivot? How do we adjust our default? How do we repair the breach between where we are and where we desire to go? We got off track. It happens. Like they say, life is lifing, right? So when life is lifing and we come back to what decisions can we make to make a different choice based on where we are that will propel us to our next. That's where the choices that we make that propel us. Sometimes we're in the mud, we get out of it, and sometimes we're already on top and want to just keep going forward. The environment that we're in, the people we associate with, the things we tell ourselves, our own mental and self-narratives, our self-talk, all of these things and choices play a part. What do we choose to say about ourselves? What do we choose to think? What do we choose to engage and interact or not to do? And to your point, yes, obedience plays a part in that. It's a significant part because we can make choices and not align them with the obedience in the direction of our purpose. So
that was deep. And it seems like you were trying to get people to understand the root cause of what's going on, what's either propelling them or derailing them. What's your thoughts on that?
What are my thoughts on what?
On getting people to get down to that root cause of where they are.
Oh, that is vital to the lifeline, getting to the root cause. So, there is, in several of my quality experiences as a manager, of course, we have corrective action and preventative action. It's like, how did this error happen? How did these changes occur? What was the disruption? Right? So, and that requires us to get to the root cause. Sometimes we may get to an initial response or contributing factor, but then there are other times that there's more beyond that. So if we just stop at that first why or that first question, we really don't get to the root of it. Same is true in our lives. So I had an example that I was speaking to someone, sharing, for those of you who don't know, many of you don't know me, but some of you do. I experienced an ocular occlusion some time ago, and it's quite natural that we want to engage and say that it was because of someone else's behavior, something that someone else had done. But when I dug deep and I decided that I wanted to explore and find the root cause of my ocular occlusion that happened in my body to my eye, I was the root cause. I was the problem. I created the problem even though it was a trigger from an external situation. And so when I say I caused it, it's because I had an issue. I never addressed it. I didn't speak up about it. I didn't talk about it. Didn't do anything about it. Just kept it in. And it is true what they say, you're broken within. It will start affecting you physically. And so the physiological responses and physical detriment that I experienced and encountered was a fault of my own. Because if I had spoken up, I had turned away, made another choice, a different choice, I would not have reached that point of buildup internally, which resulted in partial vision loss.
That's deep. the choices that you've hit on very well, and everything, the root cause that you just elaborated on, gets me thinking about something that you talk about often: acknowledge the breach. And I know that's another episode, but I'm excited for where you're going here, because we have to acknowledge the pain to get past the pain. Again, your root cause. So in closing about choices, and again, I'm excited to talk in the future about the breach and your methodology, the FACE methodology.
Yes.
So wrap us up with closing thoughts on choices.
Closing thoughts on choices. Well, I will encourage us to make a choice. Sometimes we choose the safe and easy route by not making a choice and decision and just let whatever happens. But if it's involving you, ones you love, people you care about, but first you, be concerned enough about you that you make a choice. So I always like to encourage people as I meet them in my comings and goings that, you have a voice, make a choice, and you just have to speak up.
America and world, you just heard the very first podcast, Neet's Perspective, VenitaSynder.com.
There are a few things you can do to keep the conversation going. Please leave a comment below on where you're from and what choices you would like to discuss. Maybe we can collaborate together one day. Like and follow this episode of Neet Perspective to stay connected. And lastly, share this message with others that are on their healing journey. We'll continue the journey of healing together.